So we're going to be continuing our sermon series. And as the children and the teachers leave, how many of you are, how do I say this, tired? Tired. However you want, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. How many of you are tired? All right. If you're not raising your hand, I would venture to say either you sleep really well or you're like some people in the world where things don't really attach to you. You don't really give it a lot of emotional time. I'm not like that. I'm usually an anxious mess. This morning I woke up an anxious mess because I can't control everything. I want to. Not my job. So for those of you that may be tired, I want to remind you that when you take a little time to figure out if it's your time, if it's your effort, if it is even your responsibility, if you took that time and you come to the end of that, would you find that it's not even your responsibility? My responsibility is not to save you guys. I wish I could. My responsibility is not to ensure you grow. So I wish I could take each and every one of you and put in a code, a little cheat code like from video games, and make sure you guys are all growing. But what is my responsibility is to feed you. And so today I want you to get comfortable. But if you know me, I also don't want you to get offended because my plan is to step on toes. It's okay, because beautiful are the feet. Those that bring the gospel, right? So listen, we are in this amazing sermon series that we've been in now. This is week 5, 6. And we're learning about Jesus. And not just learning about Jesus, but we're really learning about what he wants to tell us about himself. I don't know about you, but what I tell you about me is going to be a lot heavier than what you have heard about me. And when Jesus speaks, when he says something, you can take that check and cash it. That's exactly what he means. And I've had the privilege of sharing some of my testimony throughout. I remember yesterday as we have our men's Bible studies that sometimes when men get together, the way that men communicate are definitely different. It's definitely different than women. And sometimes we have to wrestle with and tussle with some things a little bit differently. And I got to share a part of my testimony that most people don't know about me. And it wasn't as if it was something shocking to the men, but it did illuminate another part of my past so they can begin to understand what God is doing in my life. Not just has done, is doing. And today, we're going to jump back in, but I have to remind us about what we talked about last week. Last week's focus was Jesus' statement of, I am the light of this world. And I told you guys last week, I'm a high school dropout, and so there are a lot of things I just didn't learn. And it was only a few years ago that I finally really understood that it's the sun that radiates its light that the moon reflects towards us. The beautiful thing is that's who we're called to be. Jesus said, I am the light of this world. And then later he says, you are the light of this world. Is he saying that you we have the capacity to have the same light as the sun? No, but we're called to reflect the sun. And then I started thinking this morning, I was like, how cool is it that we have the moon at night and we also have stars? See, in the world, they tell you to be a star. I learned some things this morning. Stars have the same power on the inside of them that the sun does. The problem is they die out a whole lot faster. So I ask you, would you rather be a star and have your own power, or would you be the moon who reflects the true power of the S-O-N? And in that, when we understand that the light that we have on the inside of us can only be seen if we open ourselves up, then we begin to understand that not only are other people missing something that only you may be able to give, they're also missing a bit of light that may illuminate a path to seeing Christ even more clearly. I know what it's like to let my light so shine, but I'm learning how to be okay with my battery running out. I want to be poured out for Jesus. I don't want to save my power. I want to give every bit of power that he's given me to every area he has called me to. And the only way to do that is to open myself all the way up. We got any open Christians here? Folks that are ready? Because the reality is, as we continue during this, we're going to have a Bible study today. I'm not going to preach at you. We're going to read a lot. I'm going to stop and I'll highlight a few things. But what I want to do is I'm going to show you this really cool picture that AI generated. I'm not that good. Because we were singing about Jesus' resurrection and what it means to us. The passage that we're going to be reading through is about another man's resurrection and what it means for us. But the beauty of Jesus' statement that I am the resurrection and the life is the right side of that picture. Because all of us in Christ have come out of a grave. The problem is we've been in the grave sometimes so long that the new life is not appealing. So what I want to do is allow you guys a moment to grab a Bible, to grab your phone or your iPad, and I'd like for you to go ahead and turn to John chapter 11, verse 17. And so that I can calm my anxious nerves, I'm going to sit down and do this. This is even better for me, because if not, I will walk all around and I will miss parts that I'm supposed to say today. So if y'all are praying, pray for me and pray for ears to hear, because right now, as you're turning, what I want to help you do is get some lenses, get a perspective of where we're going before we get there. Because I want you to pay attention to a few things. I want you to pay attention to one, Martha's response to Jesus. Right? Martha is Lazarus' sister, to whom Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. I want you to see how she responds. Secondly, is Mary's response to Martha. And Mary, who if you know Mary, Mary's the one that when Jesus came before, she was sitting there listening to Jesus teach, and Martha was running around serving and cleaning, and comes to Jesus and said, "Hey, would you tell Mary to help me?" And Jesus, like, she's chosen the better thing. I want you to see how she responds to her sister. Thirdly, Lazarus and his response to Jesus' call. And fourth, because three wasn't going to be enough. This is one that it's not going to make sense right now, but it will. Who does the unwrapping? Who does the unwrapping? So let's start reading. Here in John chapter 11, I'm starting at verse 17, and it says, "Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house." See, there's some information that I want you guys to understand, because when we read the Bible, there are cultural contexts and different clues that help us kind of understand some of the significance of why things are in there. Why would he say that he's been in there for 4 days? Because there's a Jewish belief or superstition that says that the spirit would attach himself or stay hovering for 3 days above the body. Decomposition starts on the fourth day. And by that time, the spirit would recognize that he was not going to re-enter, or she was not going to re-enter and leave. So Jesus wanted to dispel even the superstition. No, he's dead, dead. Then look at this. The people were willing to travel to them, to Mary and Martha, to console them. They must be a prominent family, because you got folks traveling a bit of a distance to go and be with them. And no matter where we go today, I need us to continue to remember the response. Let's keep reading. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection of the last day." There's faith. She went out to meet Jesus. She's receiving what he says, but even in her grief, she's still wrestling with a truth that she doesn't completely understand. Because no matter where we go, our emotions oftentimes hinder us from receiving all that's being shared. Let's keep going. Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Christ and the Son of God who is coming into the world." How does Martha respond? "Yes, Lord, I believe." Did she answer his question? She did not. She answered it to the very best of her ability in a place where her faith would allow her to go. Brothers and sisters, I don't want you to think that just because you don't believe like someone else that you're less than. But sometimes God will do a thing in your life to help you see further down that faith journey. And sometimes something crazy has to happen to help you get there. See, she's fully persuaded of who Jesus is. She's fully persuaded that Jesus will raise her brother up in the last day. But what she didn't realize is in just a few moments, she would see her brother again. See, we have the whole story. She didn't. She had her emotions and her faith, and they were battling. Anybody ever been in a war with your mental and your physical? I found out like a couple years ago, I definitely can't dunk anymore. Um, can't really play basketball anymore. I'm not very agile. So I've learned that every step that I take needs to be a little more calculated, but that's my new reality. And my faith tells me everything else is supplied by Him. Let's keep reading though. Because now Martha goes back home. And watch this. When she says this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher is here, and he's calling you." Now, when she heard it, she rose quickly and went out to him. Now, Jesus had not come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. So she ran out, got up, and left everything that she was used to. In that moment, she knew she had somewhere to be. Remember, this is the same Mary that when Jesus was in her house, she sat with him close and intentional, listening. The same Mary who wept and washed his feet with her hair. This Mary is the one we're talking about. Let's keep going. When the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now, when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Isn't it interesting that she says the very same thing that Martha said? I wonder in those last few days how many times they actually said this out loud. You guys ever meditated on the wrong thing, shared it with other people, and now they're saying the very wrong thing that you were saying and didn't realize where it came from? Just me, I know. But again, how does she come to Jesus? It says that she fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord." We don't understand the Lord with a capital L and lowercase letters, nor do we truly understand capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. See, Lord is so much more than teacher, so much more than provider. Lord means I surrender and submit totally to you. You are the answer. I am not. Let's see how this continues to play out. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." And everyone's favorite verse to get memorization points on, Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? Jesus' weeping was not as those others who were weeping and wailing. They're two different words. His weeping was just him in the moment, in that grief with them crying. Not weeping and wailing like you see on some of like the shows where like the family member goes to the casket and no, not all that. This is one of those weeping where you have emotional weight that can only be processed through tears. And he sat in that with them in a moment. You ever felt alone in your grief because you feel like God and nobody else understands? This is a passage you should go back to. That in the darkest time, Jesus showed up and he didn't say, "I got this, don't trip. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you what I'm about to do." No, he wept. He cried with them. I know some of us don't like to cry because we're too manly, Um, but a wise man once told me two things about tears and men. A real man cries, and never trust a man who doesn't. That's why I trust Jesus so much. He wept. He did not care. His emotions had to come out. And sometimes, and I learned this early on in my walk, you probably haven't had a good cry in so long because you were told to toughen up and suck it up. As a man, I'll speak to all the men. Cry. It's okay. You probably need a good one. And if you need other men to come cry with you, I know two guys that it don't take much. You're looking at one of them, and then you got my older twin right there, and Rob Horner. We'll come cry with you because we know how tears can cleanse you. Because watch what Jesus does. Remember, he wept. And then people had stuff to say. This is the dude that opened the blind eyes. Why could he have kept him from dying? Oh, just hold tight. Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone laid against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, this is one of my favorite verses, but I like it in the King James. Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, by this time there would be an odor. In the King James, anybody know the word? He stinketh. I don't know about you, but sometimes the King James version just says it so much better. Right? And so I'm going to read it with that. Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? If you believed, you would see the glory of God. If you believed, you would see something that would take your faith further than you could have ever imagined. If you were willing to go further, if you were willing to roll the stone away, if you were willing to do the thing that you thought was impossible, if you were willing to do it, he just might show up and show you that, like Gideon, you may not even have to do it, but he just needed you to show up. Let's keep going. So they took away the stone. God bless strong-backed men taking away the stone. Or women, we don't know, men or women. They strong though. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you would always hear me, but I say this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Jesus allowed this situation to happen so that others would believe. Sometimes of every tragedy that you are in right now is gathering people around you, the ones you've been praying for. Oh Lord, if you could just save my sister, would you save my brother? Would you save my cousin, my friend, my coworker? And you're in a time where everything seems to suck. And it's just to get enough people around for him to show other people why he is the I am. But are you willing to go all the way through it? Are you willing to see it? Here's the climax. This is the verse that everything hinges on. He's dead. He's been there for 4 days. He stinketh. Martha ran out. If you had been here, he wouldn't have died. Mary said the same thing. People were talking about him. Called Lazarus by his name. And it says, the man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, his face wrapped with cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. Lazarus responds, comes out, but the work's not done yet. Some of us we got saved. We even got baptized. How many people have people helping them to get unbound? Who's walking with you to take off those strips of sin that hold you captive? Matter of fact, who's helping you or counseling you and walking you through these areas that you think you're right in? We found out even yesterday while we were at Bible study, and Rob Horner gently reminded us that if there's something that you think you're right about and everybody else says you're wrong, you might want to think twice. For my young men in here, surround yourself with men that have gray and white hair. Or none. See, I get to say young men. We don't usually have a bunch of young men. But remember I told you we had a boot camp where 6 young men showed up? 4 of them are here today. And see, sometimes we think we got it all figured out because life is kind of easy. The enemy can make your life easy too. Remember, sometimes he goes about like a roaring lion. And sometimes he parades himself as an angel of light. And the beauty of this passage reminded me how fragile we are. When's the last time you heard your name called from a distance? I can remember my grandmother calling me from the playground, from her window in Germany, in the apartment that she raised my mom and all their siblings from. And we'd be out on the playground. And through all the laughter and all the joy, she would usually call our cousin Sven. And you would think she was calling a pig because it would sound something like this. Svenny! And it would pierce through everything. And we would come running. But in your darkness, have you allowed your darkness to cause you to become deaf? Has your darkness caused you to become dumb? And dumb means unable to speak, just so that we're clear, but the other dumb too. Sometimes we can get so blinded by things that we think we have or that we think we understand that now everybody else is wrong and we're the only one that's right. Remember, Martha came out saying the right things. I know who you are, Son of God, you're the Christ. Hey, the teacher wants you, sis. Hey, if you would have been here, said the same exact thing. And then Jesus had to remind Martha, did not tell you if you believed that you would see the glory of God? Oh, no, I know my brother's going to be resurrected, but I didn't know 10 minutes ago, that this was going to happen. Here's my question. When are you going to expect God to show up in your life? Only at the end? Are you starting to expect him to do a thing now? You can have the right theology. You can have faith. But do you really believe that he is the I am? That he is the resurrection and the life, the one that raises people from the dead, that calls people out of dark places, out of sin by name, and then tells others, now unbind him, unwrap him. See, we have an idea of what it should look like. Trust God, die to self, and live out or live in agape love. But see, there's a part of our stance here at this church that most people don't remember. Because that first statement of trusting God has a second portion to it. And it's because of things and verses like these. It's trust God and others. How many of you coming out of darkness want to be touched by people you don't know? And everybody shook their head like this. Can I tell you that if you're waiting for the right person to come unwrap you, you're going to miss the person that's just right to unwrap you. But I'm going to tell you, the guy that unwrapped me, he didn't look like me, and he didn't have a life like me. He was a shorter guy. You think I'm charismatic. Singer, entertainer, pretty boy, a little older than me. But like, not like, I come like from more of a harder background. Street guys got my respect, not actors. They're corny to me. And he was the one that showed me what intentionality and consistency looked like. He was the one that called me by name. He was the one that showed me what it meant to really follow the Lord. He didn't look like what I was expecting. Would have been better is like a dude 6'5", like 250, swole, that I was kind of afraid of. Not a guy that I'm like, I could take you. And then he did it again. But then, Pastor Eric's a little bigger than I am, So I was like, all right, this might be a bit of a tussle. Got, all the men in here know what we do. We usually size a man up. But then he showed me how to unwrap areas in me that I didn't know were there. And he unearthed things. And then he used a bald guy that cried a lot. And nobody looks at him. Nobody look at him. And he started speaking things into my life that I didn't want to receive. Because I was scared. Because I'm used to self-sabotage. Anybody know about that? As soon as you get to a certain point, you're just like, no, it's not for me. How can I mess this up? Because this person or this thing, this job, there's no way that I could be worth that. And he started saying stuff that started coming to fruition. I was like, who is this guy? And now he's the voice I need to hear. The Father's voice that speaks through a man, that touches part of you, that you know in the moment, that's the one. But you're not going to be able to see him because you're still wrapped. Because you're still wrapped, you start to think, I can save myself. George Whitefield has a really cool quote that I found. It says, the sinner can do no more raise himself from the deadness of sin than Lazarus, who had been dead 4 days until Jesus came. What does that mean? You can't change yourself. I don't care how many self-help books, you are the problem. So you can't fix yourself. Some of you right now still have self-help books on your shelf right next to your Bible. Some of you are reading self-help books and the Bible's sitting right there. Some of you are listening to people that are in the world spewing worldly things and your Bible's collecting dust and wonder why you stay bound. Or lost in darkness. Because you can get comfortable in a tomb. Matter of fact, did you know that it does not take long for your eyes to adjust to see in the dark? I don't care how many glasses you wear. If you stay in darkness long enough, your eyes will adjust to having minimal light. But then that becomes your norm. And when that becomes your norm, what happens when Jesus calls you out? You step out into his light, and it is the most painful thing that you've ever felt. So what do you usually do? You retreat back to the darkness. Family, I'm telling you from experience. See, when he calls you out of a dark place, and that was your comfort, as soon as it becomes challenging, your comfort becomes your God. See, Lazarus was dead, but I think we see his physical deadness and we miss the spiritual side of things. So I'll help you. What thing is killing you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually that you've been okay with? What secret life have you been living that nobody knows about, that you think God doesn't see? Remember, he said, I am the resurrection and the life. That does not mean he can't see in your death. Outside of Christ, you're walking dead. And I know the movies in the series try to make it like cool. It's not. I haven't watched Walking Dead, but I think I've seen little pictures of these Walking Dead creatures. Don't look good. Kind of weird, you know. Walk funny, and we laugh. When you walk in here, I can often tell if you've been walking dead all week. Ain't nobody laughing now. See, even if you try to paint yourself as brand new, there's some seasoned folks in here that got a little discernment that know, and they can smell the wrapping still on you. It's not to judge you. It's to tell you we're here to help unwrap you, to help wash you, to help cleanse you. But you got to come and get it. You got to come out of it. So I want to go back to John 11:44 really quickly. It says, the man who had died came out, his hands and feet wrapped. They were bound in linen strips. His face was wrapped with cloth. Jesus said, unbind him and let him stay. Stay where he's been, because, it's good that way. Not because you don't want to go, because then you might change. He calls you to go because if you stay close to that tomb, it's easy to slip back into pornography. It's easy to slip back into substance abuse. It's easy to slip back into whatever you want to add. Pride, ego, self-reliance. You fill in the blank. But God will use people, just like he used with me, to unwrap me and to show me things that I could never have seen for myself. Never. Self-control? Me? No. I had impulse control issues like nobody would believe. My wife has seen some of it, whether it's with video games, buying shoes. Has it gotten better? Yep. I'm still being unwrapped, guys. Every last one of us is still being unwrapped. It's not a one-time thing. Piece by piece, you're being unwrapped and renewed. So if you still smell like death, it's okay. Just don't be afraid to get called out on it. Perfume won't cover death. Makeup doesn't cover death. A nice beard will not cover up death. Your hunting license, your fishing license, your big paying job, your nice car, your nice house, it does not cover up the smell of death. How do we know? Because when you walk into those places, you can smell death all around. Jesus has an aroma. There's a joy with people that follow Jesus that stink to the world. So if the world thinks you smell good, because you smell like them. But if the world starts to say things like, man, what's that? That's that Jesus cologne. Yeah, I don't want you to like it, but I want you to ask about it. I usually conclude with a question. Here's the question for this week. Who has Jesus called out of death and asked you to help unwrap? And as the worship team comes with that idea in mind, discipleship is a thing that there's a two-way street of surrender that has to happen. The person that needs to be discipled has to come to one that's willing to disciple. That willingness comes to a surrender of being in prayer and walking with somebody. But it's a mutual submission to the Father and asking, how can I be there for you? And knowing that that person is going to draw you into spaces that maybe are a little uncomfortable, having conversations that feel like a kick in the butt sometimes. It ain't always the easiest conversations. Huh, Jackson? We got to be willing to keep coming back. You got to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back and having people speak life into you. When Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life, you get to experience that over and over again. Now, here, when we take communion, we all come down orderly. We take the elements, and then we go back to our seats and we take them together. So what I'd like for you to do is stand as I bring this final thought to a close. And that's this. Do you know when Jesus is calling you by name? And when he calls, how will you respond?